everybody? Kim Becker and Drew Creasman here for our first of many AMAs for the Colorado Rockies, brought to you by Mile High Sports. Spring training is right around the corner, like literally starts next week. Seems like a lot of teams, I know pitchers and catchers have already reported to Arizona, and the first full squad practice for the Rockies is Monday. Drew, tell us what to expect out of spring training here.
Well, for the Rockies, it's going to be a whole lot of young players trying to prove themselves. That's usually what spring training is. That's the most fun part of it. At least for me, it is. It's always fun to see the young players coming out, trying to prove what they can do. Rockies have a lot of guys trying to make the roster, trying to prove that they belong. So there will be a lot of that. A little bit of the veteran stories. Of course, we're going to be wondering about Charlie Blackmon. Is this his final ride in purple pinstripes? And if so, that's something we're going to want to follow very closely. I hate to break it to you this soon. We haven't even gotten there, but probably not a competitive year for the Colorado Rockies. So, you know, spring training, I think, is a good time to get used to maybe being slightly less invested in wins and losses and more in thinking about the future. Who are the young players who are going to be exciting to rally around for the future?
Well, that makes our producer, Michael, so happy to know that it's going to be such a fun season at Coors Field this upcoming season. Just one big party, right? Yikes. Okay, well, not how we wanted to start this one, Drew, but we do have several questions from our fans who sent in questions to you on Twitter, via the mailbag tweet that you sent out. We will definitely be doing that every week so that you guys can figure out what's going on with the Colorado Rockies. We will start with the first one here. Who are the biggest benefactors of Grichuk being injured and our top two pitchers being away at the WBC?
Yeah, so to start with the Grichuk thing, that's really interesting. That's going to have kind of a domino effect in the outfield. And look, Randall Grichuk's an awesome guy. He's got great glasses, high socks, love him. But the fact is, this is probably a good thing for the Rockies in the long term because some young guys are going to get opportunities. You're going to look at guys like Sean Bouchard, Brenton Doyle, Jonathan Daza maybe, who steps in and gets a lot of the time in center field. But then you've still got this big question in right field. And I think the biggest benefactor, honestly, is going to be Michael Toglia, who's been looked at as this kind of in-between guy. Do they find him some time at first base? But now he's got a really good shot at being the opening day starting right fielder coming out of the gate and just locking himself in there. So I think Michael Toglia is the guy who's probably the biggest benefactor overall. But Brenton Doyle or Sean Bouchard have a huge spring. It could be them.
All right. Okay. So there's some exciting things here to think about, to talk about, Drew. We're not all talking just what a bummer of a season we can expect to see.
And honestly, there should be a lot of things that should be fun. For the pitching side of it, the biggest benefactors, hopefully, of that are the pitchers. Look, I've said it. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. Not just the Rockies. No baseball team can go anywhere if your starting pitching isn't right. And last year, the starting pitching was wrong. Marquez and Freeland are the guys who have to turn it around for them to go anywhere. There's a lot of other things they can do and get creative, but without them, they got nothing. And that also determines not just this season, but really the next couple of years for the Rockies. So hopefully for them and then for the organization overall, the biggest benefactor is them getting themselves right.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, a two-part question here. The second part, kind of fun. But the first one, do we get Veen before or after the ASB? And should his walk-up music be Val Venus's old entrance music?
Love the second part. First of all, I think it'll be after, though. Again, back to the last question, the Grichuk thing opens up some it's so interesting when you've got prospects, Kim, because God, a guy can catch lightning in a bottle and he could be there opening day and we would all be very excited. But I think if we're being a little more reasonable, try not to overhype too early. Maybe I should be doing it wrong. maybe this is the wrong time of year. We're supposed to be hope springs eternal. I would say after the All-Star break.
Okay.
I think you've got to be smart with this kid. He's a huge part of your future. He's drawn comparisons to Cody Bellinger in the past. And if he really has the ability to be that kind of player, you want to give him every possibility to succeed upon his arrival and not someone you want to bring up for a cup of coffee, but then have to send back down when the veteran gets healthy or things like that. So I would say after the break, and absolutely come out to Val Venus's entrance music for you WWF Attitude Era fans. Look it up. Just a little sexy saxophone. Tyler Chatwood tried to come out to a sexy saxophone song for a little while, and it didn't work because he kept walking up to the plate laughing.
Oh. Couldn't even get through the walk-up. He tried.
Yeah, he tried.
Put in some effort. All right, we'll move on here. Two more before we wrap this guy up. What are your thoughts on the Rockies extending Bud Black's contract that happened recently?
Yeah, I look, I think it's a good thing for the Rockies. I understand people, a sort of wide angle view of like the team is stuck in the mud. He really hasn't been able to get them out. What's working here? But when you dig into the details, it's really not Bud Black's fault that this team has fallen apart. He didn't trade Nolan Arenado or not re-sign Trevor Story or any of the other things, right? When you look at the history books, Bud Black really is the only guy who's figured out a way to get decent pitching out of the Colorado Rockies. And that's something you just have to have in order to compete. Whether it's Marquez, Freeland, Gomber, these guys getting it together, or a new crop of guys that are going to come up or be signed, you need the person who knows how to pitch in the most difficult environment in baseball to pitch in. And that man has been Bud Black. And so I think it's a good idea. I think it makes a lot of sense, even if it's just about ushering into the next era. And then he does move on for someday, somebody with maybe a little more, because I get the people who want a forward-thinking manager, and I understand a lot of that as well. But you have to start with the basics. You have to pitch, and he knows how to do that.
All right. One last question here. What kind of impact will Ezequiel Tovar have on this roster? Is there any chance he is the opening day starter at shortstop?
I'm going to combine this back with a question that you implied earlier, Kim, about fun. This is probably the most fun part of the Colorado Rockies. Not only do I expect Ezequiel Tovar to be the opening day starter at shortstop, I expect him to be in the running for Rookie of the Year. His reports in the minors were off the charts when it came to his defense. Since he's been a teenager, guys have put the label on him as a potential Gold Glover. But for the last couple of years, and he's still only 21 years old. I think he's the second or third youngest player who's ever made their debut for the Colorado Rockies. Yeah. And he got a base hit on the first two pitches that he saw in the big leagues. He's aggressive, he's confident, he's fun, he's got all the tools, good contact, good power, great defender, can run the bases a little bit. Everything you want in an exciting baseball player, including the fact that, did I mention he's 21 years old? So that's the guy. If you're saying, why am I tuning into these games? What am I really looking for? Number one is your new rookie shortstop, Ezequiel Tovar.
Well, that is very good information, because I know people love to go to the games. They go to the party deck. They get the live sports aspect. But if you're tuning in on TV, or if you're not in Denver, not able to come to games, or if you're even just trying to watch the away games, we like to hear what the reasons to tune in are. And that sounds like a very good one. Drew, before we wrap this up, can you just let us know what the Rockies schedule looks like the next couple of weeks here, when we can see them for sure start playing their season, and hope that it's different than you expect?
Right, exactly. Well, pitchers and catchers have reported the first spring training game will take place as a split squad game against the Arizona Diamondbacks on February 25th. Remember that early in spring training, those first week and a half, you're only going to see your major league guys. You're only going to see Charlie Blackmon, CJ Cron for an inning or two. Then they're coming out, and all the young guys are going to go in there. So that's how that's going to be for a couple of weeks. Then they'll get into it at the end. It'll be March 30th is opening day in San Diego, California, where I'm sure the weather will be nice.
Oh, yeah, that is a great place for opening day. Maybe some Colorado Rockies fans will travel. That would be very nice. But Drew, I appreciate you. To everybody tuning in, this was our first AMA for the Colorado Rockies right here at Mile High Sports. Make sure that you are following us on social media, and make sure that you are following Drew at Drew Creasman. He will send out a tweet weekly, depending on the schedules, the Rocky schedule, probably every Thursday, right? And to ask what kind of questions you have, that mailbag tweet. So make sure that you are following along, get your questions in, and Drew will answer them right here for you every week. Thanks so much, Drew.
Absolutely.